All right, what's up, everyone? Hopefully, you're doing amazing out there. I'm coming at you live from Honolulu. So I'm finally down here and I can stream a little bit more, have a little bit more time to pop this stuff off. So let's do this. If you're excited about what I'm going to talk about, just drop an excited down in the comments. If you want me to look at a specific thing, just drop that down in the comments and I will check it out. But I figured out that I can actually stream, just show my what I'm looking at right now. So I'm here. We got the ocean behind us. We've got the other stuff in front, but check this out. I can actually use my phone's camera to show things off. So I mean, I've got like the mountains, we've got like the beaches. So it's legit. Downtown. See if we can get this back. But anyway, let's take a look at the markets and see where we're at, what we've got going on. First off, let's just take a look at the overall macro kind of environment and see where we're at in terms of crypto stocks and everything in between. So right now, fear and greed index about 64. We're still kind of creeping down. It hasn't really pushed up. We were down here at like 88. So it tells me that we're still not quite in the place to where people are taking like significant risks. All right. Can you hear me now? I think my audio just cut out. I think I'm struggling with my audio. Can you guys hear me again? If you can't hear me, just drop can't hear you down below. If you can, then we're good to go. So anyway, we've had the market selling off. We've had the ETFs, so now we're kind of just chilling sideways. When we look at the past 7 days in the big caps, got Bitcoin, which has basically been sideways, ETH, which is up 20%, BNB, which is basically sideways. Pretty much everything else other than Dogecoin has been running sideways. Not really a ton going on in the market outside of like meme coins. Uniswap actually looks pretty good because of likely it's pumping because of ETH. Pepe is pumping because of it's an ETH beta. So the ETH betas you'll notice are starting to push pretty hard. So Uniswap, we've got Pepe, Ethereum Classic up a little bit. So a lot of those are the coins that are performing well. And you can see it kind of taking the liquidity out of Sol. So when ETH pumps, the liquidity starts to flow out of the Sol market and into the ETH-based beta coins. So even Dog with Hat isn't up very much. I'd probably expect like Optimism and ARB to pump pretty hard pretty soon. Bonk is actually up surprisingly. So Bonk's kind of also the other theory I had is the money from WIF flowed out of WIF and into like Bonk and Pepe and some of the other coins, especially Bonk and Pepe. So something to pay attention to. So we got Lido, another ETH beta up 31%. So a lot of the ETH-based coins are really pushing. Ondo, RWA on ETH, so up 20%. So those are the ones that are really killing it and doing well. Aave, ETH, DeFi. So you'll notice Beam, Gaming, Athena on ETH. All of these ETH-related coins are starting to move finally. Pendle, 35% up. So market looks good in terms of ETH. Anyway, let's push into and see what it looks like. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at some charts. Okay. So looking at ETH charts and stuff like that, let me turn all this shit off. So basically right now, what happened with this market that I've been kind of paying attention to is we broke out of this trend line and then Bitcoin fell straight back through it. Didn't even attempt to try to bounce or test it. Fell all the way through it, bounced off, fell all the way back down, bounced up, and now it's back above this descending line. So what we need to do is close the daily above this line, and it would put us in a pretty good spot to say, okay, bounce, confirmation, retest, trend. That's what we're basically waiting for. And that could take the weekend. If we can close the 3-day above, which closes in 2 days, that would be great. If we close the weekly above, it'd be even better. So anything above here, this like 69,276 zone would be really impactful for us to close above so we can finally really make a big move. When we look at the weekly, we had a pretty nice little sharp reset. The other thing I liked on Bitcoin was we did have a nice reset here off the 3-day, which drove us up, kind of falling, but resetting back here. If this pushes, that puts us in a pretty good zone. When we look at ETH, same thing. Well, not same thing. ETH had this nice, beautiful 3-day reset that pushed us all the way through right here upon the news, bounced off of this line that I drew, and that line is basically coinciding with the 4-hour trend. So it's below it now, but notice how it wicked off of it to the letter. So that's kind of what ETH is doing. It wicked right off here, and now it's kind of staying inside this 4-hour trend zone. So for me, and I was talking about the good entries on ETH, it would have been somewhere in this zone, which we tagged the entry absolutely perfectly. So ETH looks really, really nice on the 4-hour. It's finally, I said it was going to play out this div, and it did, and it's almost there. I think it probably maybe has one more impulse and then push. Kind of depends on what Bitcoin does. On the weekly, though, this is what I really liked about it. Weekly, we have this beautiful 50-line reset. So this RSI is reset, ready to start running again. So pretty much that puts us in a zone to where we say, okay, this giant God candle, as long as we don't like erase the entire candle, is in a really good position. And I posted what my entries and stuff look like on that. But coming back to the 4-hour, like I said, we tagged that entry perfectly. If we come back into that zone, I'd probably look to compound again. Coming over here to Sol kind of looks like trash in comparison. So Sol, it's lost its 50 line on the 4-hour. ETH did not. It stayed above. Sol kind of collapsed and lost it. And it's trying to push back up. We'll see if this Dalai Lama it needs to push through. When we look at Sol on the 4-hour, the daily looks like it wants to come back and test this 50 line. It already tested the daily trend pretty hard and like fell straight through almost. When we look at the 3-day, similar scenario, it's peeling back through. It looks like it wants to test that 50. Sol is going to be really dependent on Bitcoin right now. It basically, I mean, this is a massive failure in terms of this. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sol come through and maybe even sweep this. Just because one of the things I think is happening is ETH is sucking the liquidity out of Sol now. So now ETH is going to be the one that's more resilient and stronger, and Sol is going to be the one that kind of struggles sideways for a little bit. So that's something to pay attention to. Looking at the things that I like, something like Render it was pushing pretty well above that 11 zone. It needs to get above that like 1137 zone, got rejected all the way back down. So now it's kind of deciding whether or not it wants to make this another drive or if it wants to come back down and test the 50 on this weekly level. This had the potential for a really nice reset, and it did. So we had the nice reset, and then we had this down week, and now we're right here. So if it closes like this, it probably anticipates sweeping the lows, maybe, potentially, depending on what Bitcoin does. But I would look for, come down here to the 4-hour, see how it lost the 4-hour trend. So now Render is going to struggle to come back and get above the trend and get above this 50 line. I think someone asked about Jupe. It looks similar to Sol, like almost identical. It's not there yet. It looks like it's trying to recover. It's actually recovering better than Jupe is. When we look at it on the daily, it's coming through. It's trying to bounce off this 50 line. It's pushing back through. Maybe we can get above that daily trend. 3-day, same thing, coming back, probably going to test that 50. The problem with Sol coins is if Bitcoin doesn't behave and ETH goes on a run, it's going to suck the liquidity out of all the coins in the Sol ecosystem too. Optimism, I would expect to look a little better. It looks like it tried. That's a massively compressed band. So when Sol gets above this, it's going to be basically like a slingshot. So as soon as it gets above, it's going to be like boop and drive pretty hard. Just needs to actually do it. Like it got rejected all the way back down here, which was not a good look for Sol or for OP. And basically that's rejecting off of the 50 line and coming back through on the 3-day. When we look on the daily, still struggling, falling through. So it doesn't quite have the strength it needs yet. Popcat, another Sol coin. It's been getting rejected off this daily trend for quite a while now. It's had 1, 2, 3 rejections, and now it's got a bounce. So it's basically holding this bottom. Like right there, it's holding that support line. but it's getting rejected off of this trend line here. So when we look at PopCat, it's like this 0.4142 zone. It just can't seem to close above. Closes above that, then it probably runs to new highs. So that's what I would be looking at for PopCat. We don't really have enough data for the 3-day. 4 hour, same thing. We're looking for it to cross above this 50 and cross through this trend line. Someone asked about Ondo. You see if there's any questions, drop those in the chat down below and I'll answer those. STX. Yeah, I'll take a look at STX. Okay. Let me reshare. Okay, so Ondo looks like just magic money. Ondo looks good. We kind of came back, tested this trend line. It actually initially pushed through, came back and tested, got stuck, fell through, pushed, bounced, and now we're in a pretty good trend. For me, I called Ondo to buy at the 0.83 zone. So we bought here and it ended up being a pretty good entry. I think right here in this zone was a good entry. And then right here in like this zone, this 0.95 was a really good entry. What I would be waiting for on this one would be a retest of the trend line. So I would be waiting for a retest of the CMA 13 and 21, which right now would be like 105 and 102. That would be kind of my zone I'd be looking for. If it can get to there, I think it'd be a good buy because it'll retest that. As long as it doesn't fall straight through, get a bounce and a continuation pattern. So that's what I would be looking for. It could be higher. We have to watch these trend lines to see what the entry, but that's what my entry would look like at the moment. When we look at Ondo on the macro, daily is basically, it's in Moon City. We basically broke this right here, and when it broke here is when I initially bought. It was like right here, and then we had to wait a while. And then we came through, retested, now pushing straight through. So daily looks good, no problems there. 3-day looks great, beautiful 50 line reset. And then weekly, we can't even tell, but it's a great weekly. We've finally broken through this zone. If it closes here, it's just, I mean, we could possibly see a retest, but man, it's going to be City. If we look at where Ondo could possibly be headed, got the fib extension. Let's check it out. So where it's at, Ondo, once it crossed this golden fib line, that was the moonshot. So basically straight up from that 0.85 to where it's at now. Big point of resistance now for Ondo is going to be like this 116 zone. Big point of support is going to be like this 105 zone. So like I said, that'd be a beautiful buy-in if it does come down to retest that. If it does clear this 116, we're probably looking at 125 and like 132-ish to push back up above. All right, let's take a look at some other things that I think are interesting. Doge, we'll go into memes in a second. Let's see, Pendle looks really good. Pendle's another good buy. Looking at Pendle on the weekly, it had just a monstrous weekly reset here. So straight down and then right off that weekly line, just push straight back up. So that's a beautiful weekly reset here, which tells me there's a lot of strength in this trend as long as the market can keep up. So then I come over to the 4 hour. And if I wanted to get on this trend, there's some divs here, some bear divs. So what I would be looking at is for this to maybe impulse down to that 50 line, which is going to coincide with testing this like 630, 616 zone, which would be a nice buy up as long as it maintains strength there. It doesn't fall through the 50 here. Tensor is another one. I think I picked up Tensor somewhere in the 90s. So we're looking good. We're finally breaking out of this range. We've got a nice reset on the 4 hour. On the daily, we're just now crossing this daily. As long as it holds this, I think it's gonna cook. Such a good, I mean, look, it hasn't broke through on this like 0.75 zone or really any of this bottom here, like 0.80 even. It hasn't closed anything below. It looks really good. Now we're starting to reset 50 over. So if it actually pushes here, we've got a really good indicator that we're going to see some long-term trend strength. I would be probably looking at, I don't know if we have enough data for the 3-day. We don't yet. I would be basically we're clearing that 0.618 zone now. So we rejected, then we pushed through, which brought us up here. Now I think where we're headed, I think 108 is going to be a good spot for the next leg up, and then 113. We get past that, we're probably looking at like the 129, 135 zone. So it's got a ton of move to room. I think Tensor only has like $100 million market cap too. So it has a ton of potential. It's up 15% on the day. It's another really good one. Let's take a look at memes. Everyone always asks about AI. AI is not cooking right now. AI kind of died after the NVIDIA earnings. And I think ETH is sucking a lot of the energy out of the AI market too. But even like the influencer shield rotting garbage here isn't pushing. These things push pretty hard. Let's take a look at memes. So looking at memes, Doge looks good. Doge is breaking out of a trend. Turn this off for now. Doge is good. It kind of crossed above on this 4-hour. It's fighting to stay above though at this point. It looks good on the daily. It's crossed that 50. It's trying to survive and stay above. It's been kind of slow grinding. Crossed above on that 3-day. Looks good here. Really what we need to do is we need to see Doge above this like 0.16386 zone. Then it's probably Moon City. What I would be looking at is breakthrough. We're breaking. I would look for strength here. And then the next 3-day, I would look for strength here. And I would look, and my stop loss would be basically us like falling straight through this and not holding it on a 3. Is what I would be looking at for this, because this is a pretty good indication of kind of a moon mission if Doge is able to push through it. WIF just kind of flat. It looks like WIF is starting to distribute a little bit. So it had this like top, so to speak. Now it's just kind of stuck sideways here. So it's going to be in this like 307, like 269 zone. It's going to be like, it could potentially just sit there sideways for a while. Like I said, I think WIF is losing it. I think money's flowing out of WIF and into bonk and stuff like that. You can even see it on the RSI, just straight sideways chop. There's not really a lot of reason to do anything on this right now. I would wait to see some sort of nice impulse. Lately, the impulses have been getting sold off. Same thing here, just straight sideways on the weekly. If it does close above this 286 zone, there's probably some efficacy that it could potentially move, but we'll have to wait and see. Overall, I just don't think it's a great buy in comparison to some of these other things like bonk. Bonk's had this 2386 zone that it's been stuck under for a long time. Bonk actually reset on the 3-day and pushed through it. And so now Bonk looks like it's in a really good position to just push through its previous highs. Like looking at Bonk on the 4-hour. It's got quite a bit of room to move. And we can clear this like 3675 zone. It probably pushes to like the 4s. Sheeb hasn't been doing as much. Not a big fan of Sheeb at the moment. Floki's not bad. Floki, we had a nice impulse on the 4-hour. It's kind of correcting down, retesting this trend. It needs to push past this 245548 zone. And then I think it puts us in a position to start challenging kind of the like this zone up, the 255 zone up here, 000255. When we look at the higher time frames, we look good. We were able to clear above on the daily and hold. We've actually not fallen below this 2059 zone, which is good every time we fall below. Actually, this 219 zone. Every time we fall below, it wicks above. So as long as it holds the dailies above there, I think it has the potential to start pushing back up to this zone. When we look at Flocky up here on the 3-day, same thing, hasn't closed below. So far, so good. When we look at it on the weekly, same thing. It's got a really nice weekly breakout. So we just need to hope and pray that it continues. Pepe, same thing. Just a massive moon mission on Pepe. It finally broke this zone on the weekly. On the 3-day, we're looking good. As long as we hold above this 1398 zone, then I think we're good. If we don't, we'd probably come down and maybe sweep these lows. But ultimately, I think Pepe has potentially the strength to run up this 2005 zone. On the weekly, same thing, really nice reset. Just nothing looks like it's getting in the way. If I wanted to buy into Pepe, I think my zone would probably be looking for, I'd potentially be looking for this like 1343 zone and hoping it holds. And if it does, then I know I have a good opportunity. Let me check the questions. Any questions in the comments? Yeah, I'll check out STX. Let's see, PopCat. PopCat's just, it's basically sideways. It's tried to push above this 4-hour, but rejected every single time. Just doesn't have the strength. Basically bounces off this 3493 every time it touches it, but then it gets rejected right up here. So it's just kind of in this holding pattern at the moment where it can't break out. They're not really on my buy list at the moment. I mean, I bought PopCat at 9 cents, so I'm just kind of chilling it at the moment. Bowden, similar story. This is kind of basically got some serious sell pressure. So it's kind of trying to hold across this line. Don't think it's a good buy at the moment. It had a lot of momentum, but lately it's kind of fallen off. It's gotten rejected of trying to cross its 50. So def not a good buy. I think the next stop for Bowden is probably in this like 2107 zone. Mog had a good breakout. Unfortunately, looks like it's erasing the entire thing. It is an ETH beta though, or an ETH meme coin, so I think it has potential to run pretty well. It had a really nice weekly reset here. So I would probably be looking for I would hope that it holds here. If it doesn't hold here, then I'd probably want to come in and buy down here if I was looking for a good entry. The Cockinu, I think this had a little breakout, but nothing crazy. No, doesn't look great. Let's see what else looks good. Bitcoin had a decent break. So Bitcoin broke. Now it's basically just kind of sideways chilling here, but ultimately not horrible. It had a nice reset. Now it's kind of trying to figure out if it wants to continue or not. Looks good on the 3-day. Looks good on the weekly. Really, actually on the weekly, it has a really nice reset here. So something to pay attention to here. If I wanted to get into this, my first buy zone, well, it looks like it's going to lose this. So I'd probably be coming over here and I'd look, I guess my buy zone would be like right here, if it can hold that. Smurf Cat, another one that had a pretty good break, but I think it's starting to fall apart a little bit. Came right back down. Let's look at the daily. Actually, good daily break. Because of this, I would anticipate we'd probably come through and sweep. Not sure. Weekly's decent. If it holds above here, I think it has potential. It just needs to hold above on this weekly and the next one. It probably has potential to start moving really well. Tashi just doesn't look great. Every time it goes up, it gets cheated straight back down. People TWAPing this thing straight to zero, basically showing it to you and then TWAPing it to zero. Just doesn't look great. Not something I jump into. Brett, I think, looks pretty good. Brett looks actually good. Had a nice reset off the 4-hour. Basically stuck. It needs to get past this resistance zone. Like notice I have a reminder here. If it gets past that, then I think Brett has the potential to run back to its highs, wherever it was, like up in this zone. It does actually look good. When we look at the daily, cross through, good reset on the daily. Good 3-day reset. I don't know if it's old enough to have a weekly. I don't think it is. So basically we needed to close a 3-day above this line. And then I think it would be a pretty good opportunity because then we can come back down and basically accidentally close that. So we can come back down and say, okay, this thing has the potential to probably push into like the 06 zones. That zone probably would be another pretty solid run up. Dog in me does not look good. Normie starting to lose it. The only one on base that looks great from this perspective is really Brett. Maybe Normie may have found a bottom here. If I was going to buy in, I would just basically have that as my do or die point because it just doesn't look great across the board. It's getting rejected. Like a lot of this tells me it's going to keep going back down. Same thing with Mochi. Pops, nothing really. So that's kind of like what that looks like. Let's take a look at STX. Someone asked about that. All right, STX. It wants to be good. It's trying. It's not really a good buyout for me just yet. Like when I look, let's go to the 4-hour. 4-hour, I would like to see this above the 50, and I would like to see STX there's a lot of junk to get through here. Like from $2.02 to like 223, it's just a massive wall of junk that it needs to get through. That being said, if it does get past like this $2.07 zone, it could have potential. But ultimately, I think if I was going to play this, I'd probably be looking at this as like my do or die line. I would play this spot. I wouldn't play this on leverage or anything like that at the moment. Just doesn't look clean enough. It's lost to 50 on the 3-day. It's nasty in comparison to what it should look like with Bitcoin pushing so hard. Same thing. ARB looks like it's trying to reset, just not quite there yet on the weekly. On the daily, ARB's finally done it. It actually looks pretty good. So I would say ARB looks like it wants to have some potential. What it needs to do is hold above this zone, like 117 and like 115. If it can hold above that zone, then I think it's in a pretty good spot. If it can't hold above that zone, probably coming back down to test this like 111 zone. Which brings me to my ETH beta list. Let's take a look at actually RWAs. So we looked at Ondo. I think Pro has a lot of efficacy. It looks like it's still kind of in a similar position to where it really hasn't pushed where I'd like it to be. Pendo looks good. Like Ondo looks good. Everything else just kind of blob. I like Pro a lot. It's a small cap, like 300 million market cap. I think it has a lot of potential. It's available on Coinbase. You don't have to go find it in Jupiter or anything crazy. All right, let's take a look at ETH betas. So ETH betas, we've got CRV doing okay, Brax, we got LDO that's up. So there's a lot of ETH betas that are doing well. Pepe, if I was going to play this, I'd probably play Pepe, probably try to play LDO. Maybe ARB, ENS looks really good. It's had a really nice, let's just take a look at this on macro. Like, what does this look like? So ENS, beautiful weekly reset. Let's just scroll through. Aave, trying, almost there. ARB, not quite there. Comp, just about there. CRV, no. ENS looks good. So ENS would be a decent one. This has a really nice reset. So if I was going to jump into this, I'd come down to the 4-hour and I'd say, okay, well, where's a good zone for this? This thing, actually, this was beautiful. This zone right here is what I'd be looking at for something like this. And then if that doesn't hold or we get some sort of nuke, then I'd probably be looking at this down here. But man, ENS looks really good in comparison to everything else. Maybe LDO could compete. Yeah, LDO looks decent. Looks like it's going to lose. Probably. I mean, this would be my buy-in for LDO. It'd still be pretty solid. So I think it has a lot of potential there too. OP, not quite there yet. I think SNX typically moves pretty hard when ETH starts moving. Sushi does. Sushi looks good. Really nice reset. So that's kind of the markets. Let me know if there's any questions in the comments. Yeah, I did Sol on Jupe. I'll do Sol and Jupe real quick again, though. They just Sol. It doesn't look great. I mean, it tried to push here, it got rejected, fell straight through. It looks like it's going to get stopped out again. It just doesn't look like a good trade. Like when I was talking about this in dudes, I had a Sol long and I kind of thought maybe that ETH would suck the liquidity out, but I didn't think ETH would suck the liquidity out as hard as it did. Like Sol's got nothing. Sol's absolutely like devastated by it. And I say this, but it's still 167 American dollars, so it's fine. But if Sol doesn't get some strength, it's going to come back down and come here, and then it's going to come test this. I wouldn't be surprised to see a sweep even lower. So you just have to be careful with this. It doesn't look good. It rejected off to 50 here, and it was a pretty hard rejection. But now it's coming through. It's like a dollar long right now. It's pushing. It just cannot come back into another low, or we're probably going to sweep. Looking at the daily, it's coming to test this 50. I'd be looking for a bounce off this 50. It did bounce off the daily trend, which is a good thing. It looks like it's coming back down to test on that 3-day. I don't know. I think it's better to be long ETH right now. It also kind of didn't do very well here. I wouldn't be surprised to see us come back and maybe sweep. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would jump into another long on this right now. I do think there's some efficacy because you could say, okay, well, this is the EMA. If it loses this, it's definitely going here. So I could set a stop loss like right here and say, okay, well, that's my stop loss. My buy-in's here. If you're maxing out leverage, you're going to get wrecked. But if it's like low lev, you could probably get away with it. But the problem is it's rejected. I'd be worried about it rejecting off of this trend line over and over and over again too, and starting to get like a sending pattern. Same thing with Jupe. It just doesn't look any better. It looks the same as Sol. It just keeps rejecting. Not a lot of reason for me to want to long or buy or do anything on either of these coins right now. And I say that because I think ETH is sucking liquidity out of these Sol coins. So definitely not something that I'd be looking to jump into. Like right now, I think Ondo is one of the strongest coins. Tensor is one of the strongest opportunities. Pendle is a strong opportunity. Token is a strong opportunity. There's so many other strong opportunities to jump into where you don't necessarily need to be in like Sol, Jupiter, anything like that. So something to think about. Doge is a good opportunity. Bonk is a good opportunity right now. Pepe, all those things. There's a bunch of other things. All right. Let me know if there's any other questions. That's it. That's all I've got for today. I just kind of wanted to jump in, do another market analysis. When I look at where we're headed on Bitcoin, like I said, we need to clear above this line. So we're working on it. If we can on the 3-day, what I would be looking for is for us to basically impulse to the 73K zone, maybe have some sort of wick down to the 70 to retest, but I would be pushing or at least expecting us to push to like this 84. Somewhere between these lines, like 78 to 84 is the zone that I would kind of be anticipating. It would be basically push, maybe reject, push, test, straight up is kind of what I would expect based on where we're at. Looking at the weekly, probably a similar scenario that I'd be expecting. Yeah. ETH's move should be pretty monstrous just because it's been down for so long. It's just basically like literally still hasn't done anything in terms of what it should. So when I look at ETH, my anticipation would be for us to clear this zone, this like 42.72 to 43.88. If we clear that, I think we push straight through. We probably push into the like this zone. Wouldn't be surprised to see that somewhere near like 5K. But like I said, ETH, it's getting there. It just needs to hold above here, not fall through this 3.647 zone. Like we should have gotten a pretty good position from what I called. Either we hold here and it's all hunky dory, or we come back down and we kind of sweep these lows down at this like 3.659 zone. I think I don't anticipate we go lower than that. That's what I'd be looking for. And that's kind of what we got in when we jumped in the market. So that's it. Let me know if y'all have any questions. And if you, thanks for the tip, might get into Bonk. Yeah, just kind of pay attention to it on what I was showing. Bonk, Pepe, both look really good. Look a lot better than like Jupe, Sol, any of that stuff. Remember, that can all change in an instant and I'll update as it goes along, but that's kind of where it's at. That's all I've got to say. If you found this helpful, just drop a helpful in the comments. And if you found this broadcast valuable, just go on to Twitter and tag me in it and let me know what your biggest takeaway was and how it was helpful for you. Just follow me on Twitter. It's just my name, Chandler SAF. I'm this guy, Chandler SAF. Just follow me on Twitter, tag me in it, and let me know what your #1 biggest takeaway was from the broadcast. And that's it. I will talk to you all later.